Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of the Rising Laterally podcast. This is Arjun Sachdev.
And this is Jay Ballou. We hope you find something here that offers you new meaning or a fresh perspective.
If you do, we encourage you to give it life.
Be bold.
Experiment.
And most importantly, bring it into the interactions with the people you surround yourself with.
And see what happens.
Our guest today is Nate Johnson. Nate is a professional development and emotional resilience coach based in Los Angeles. Nate actually co-authored the Amazon bestseller, The Successful Mind. He was a featured speaker at the Inc. 5000 this year, and he's just one of those guys who's really done a lot based on his bio, as we'll kind of walk through. He's really lived without limits. He's lived the life of an outdoorsman in New Zealand and Australia. He at one point was working as a suicide prevention counselor, and he's a professional development coach now. And perhaps most importantly, I'm thinking Nate's a pretty good guy. I was looking at his LinkedIn, and he actually has 26 very thoughtful recommendations from peers, which has got to be a record. I've never seen anyone come close to that number. So we'll have to figure out how you were able to meet so many great people. But I think maybe a starting point would be talking about your contribution to The Successful Mind. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit about how you got roped into that project.
Sure. Well, COVID wasn't easy for me to deal with at the beginning. I had an apartment in Los Angeles, and I hadn't made like physical touch, like not even a handshake with anybody for 2 whole months. And so I was really going stir crazy, and I thought, well, I need to do something within my control, something consistent daily that I can show at the end. So I started doing a 30-day blog post series and just wrote stuff that was on my mind, a lot around philosophy, but also integrated with film and comedy, which is another passion of mine. And then I would post those on Medium and then on LinkedIn. I had started to coach, but didn't really know how to become a coach. So I was like, I'll just put out content, start spreading it around, get my name out there a little bit more, and then have something to refer people back to. So the author of this, or the producer of this book, The Successful Mind, must have just either through the algorithms discovered my profile, or because I was posting so much, discovered my profile. And he hit me up and he asked if I wanted to help co-author this book. And I had wanted to write a book. And so I said, yeah, of course, I'm totally on board.
That's cool. Yeah, that's definitely a testament to the fact that it's important to get content out there and let the algorithms work in your favor. That's something Arjun and I are still, we'll really have made a project of recently, since we've launched Rising Laterally, trying to figure out how to get eyeballs on our program. So far, we've been pretty successful, but definitely got to get content out there.
Yeah. By the way, I love the name of your podcast, Rising Laterally. It very much gives the all ships rise with the
right, yeah,
with the rising tide, something like that.
Yeah.
A rising tide lifts all ships.
There it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ultimately what it is, it's like, we don't want people to be information hoarders. It's like, Nate, you've had an experience in your own life and you have a story to tell. Don't hold on to it, right? It's like, if you're play your part in the ecosystem. So if you're a honeybee and you go out, you find pollen, you're going to come back to the hive and do your little waggle dance, and you're going to show all the honeybees how to find food. So by doing that, everyone thrives. And then that's how we all rise laterally.
I love that so much. I think it's a really great name for a podcast. Great mission.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Nate. Well, I did enjoy your chapter in the book. I actually a few times on the show already, we've explored the differences between the way babies see the world and adults see the world, which is kind of coincidental because that came up in your chapter. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the way that you observed how a baby perceives their own limits versus the way an adult perceives their own limits and the significance of that.
Yeah, you bet. So my chapter was on perception and how perception is not only malleable, but you can choose the perception that you want to see, and you can choose to have multiple different angles and perceptions. I started the chapter off with the man with the hammer syndrome, which is an Abraham Maslow term, meaning basically to a man with the hammer, every problem looks like a nail. So he's going to treat everything the same. And the way to see things differently is to acquire more tools. So instead of just a hammer, acquire more things so you can start seeing these things in the world from different perspectives rather than just the perspective of the hammer. So, you know, when you present a concept like perception is, you can choose a perception, people are like, you know, this is a bunch of BS. You know, it's very easy to misconstrue and to, you know, think it's like spiritual or that you have to believe a certain thing. That's kind of the first reaction that a lot of people can have. But the way I went about it first was by approaching it from a baby compared to an adult. So with every new stage that a baby gets to, their reality completely changes. So first they start off not being able to crawl. You know, they can't get from here to there. And now they can crawl. So they start crawling and they can see a little bit higher. So the reality is increased. And then when they can stand, then their reality is increased even more. Then they get abilities where they can like start turning off and turning on lights, and their reality literally continues to change with each developmental stage they get to, whether that be mental or physical. And it's a very easy way to see like, hey, you know, perception does change, and you can choose your perceptions by basically acquiring more skills by continuing to grow.
Yeah, and I think you know, one of the finer points of that chapter is that it seems like most adults don't move through the world with the mindset that a baby has. Like they assume that their skills are rigid, they're, you know, solidified after a certain age, and you know, maybe to some extent it is harder to acquire new skills as you get older and you're not acquiring things as quickly as a baby. But I think a lot of our limits as adults are self-imposed, which is something you brought up in the chapter, and I'm sure you probably see with the clients you work with in your coaching.
Yeah, and I don't even think it's just self-imposed. I think it's also defended. You know, you try to get somebody to see a particular, like see beyond their current perception, and they almost fight you because it's easier to see from, it's simpler to see from, you know, a simpler perspective, a less complex perspective. It's comfortable. It's there's validation from family, from society, from their you know, their group of friends. There's a lot of people backing them up. Once you start changing your perception, it can be a little bit scary. It can be a little bit disconcerting, and you'll feel more alone at the beginning until you find more people with that perception.
Absolutely. It's like anytime you have a shift in perspective, you kind of enter an unknown. So that is a little bit scary, but it's interesting because I think a lot of adults, they know what they like and they like what they know. And it's a very
Yeah.
limited way of thinking. And in terms of the fact that as we become adults relative to a baby, they don't have anything in terms of context other than their own experience. Meanwhile, adults are perceiving their limits in the context of society, right? There's like a path to success that people are taught. So in that context, it's like always a comparison. It's like, where am I relative to my peers? What, you know, where am I relative to what is expected of me? And so all of a sudden, these limitations get set on yourself. Whereas if you look at a baby, that's really who we should be learning from, because they really haven't been influenced by society. There's no limits. And again, it's their entire experience.
That's such a good point. I mean, there's a ton of wisdom in children, even before they can communicate, because you just see how quickly they develop. I would say that's another difference between adults and children, is that children have to, their perception is forced upon them because they're continuing to grow, and their natural inclinations are to develop. Their natural inclinations are curiosity. They can't help it. They just are naturally curious. Adults, I think the reason it can be harder to change perspective is not only societal pressures and pressures of comfort, but also that it's a choice, that they don't have to become uncomfortable. Like it's a choice to become uncomfortable with their new perspective. And a lot of people don't want to make that choice.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue into the idea of being a corporate refugee and breaking through some of those expectations and welcoming the unknown into your life. You
Mhm.
described yourself on LinkedIn as someone who helps corporate refugees transition. And you mentioned over email to me that you're a corporate refugee yourself. So I know the work that you're doing is personal to you, and it's personal to Arjun and I because we're in that period of transition right now. We can spend a bit more time talking about your coaching in a bit here, but maybe you could tell us first about your own story and what drove you to cut out and do your own thing.
Sure. So let's see here. So I grew up in Nebraska, but I always loved California. So this is the perfect shirt to
That's
put it all
awesome.
together.
You're a Cornhusker.
That's right. I'm a Cornhusker. Oh, that's a little bit taboo to say these days because their football team's so bad. It was way better when I was growing up. But anyways, I always wanted to move to California. Like that was my dream. I was just going to get to California. I wasn't going to stay here in Nebraska. I wasn't going to be, safe for like all my friends and stuff like that. I was tired of the cold and stuff like that. So it was a very contrarian viewpoint, which it's fun to be contrarian, but I think contrarian is often a reaction to something. So it's not really your own independent thinking, as you're just doing the opposite of what other people are doing.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. It's much better to form independent thought, but maybe you can't get there unless you're contrarian first.
Right.
So I moved to California, went to school at a college called California Lutheran University in Thousand Oaks, which is just north of LA. It was great. They offered me, a good scholarship. I had to go to a private school because I was out of state to get scholarships and stuff like that. But it was a great experience. Met a lot of lifelong friends there. But when I graduated, I was playing it safe. I had gotten a business degree, which, it was great, but it was very general. I thought it was good to be general when I realized, oh, maybe I should have been more specific. Maybe I should have done the things that I really wanted to do in college. So I was like, maybe I need to venture out a little bit. So I started applying for jobs, and every job wanted to know what was my Microsoft Suite extent of my Microsoft Suite skills. And I was like, I can't. Are you guys millennials or are you Gen Z?
I'm millennial. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm 34 now.
Okay. All right. So we're all in the same. I'm 36. So we're all in the same kind of boat. So I was just disgusted by that. I was like, I can't believe after all this education and hundreds of $1,000s of college, that all you want to know is my Microsoft Suite skills. Like, this is bogus. So I was like, I'm out of here. So I moved to New Zealand. A friend of mine convinced me to do that, but 3 days after we bought our tickets, he was hit by a truck and killed crossing the street on July 4th, 2008.
Wow.
So that was the first real tragedy I ever experienced in my life, and I hope one of the, I hope the last or one of the very few. But it taught me that most people would have changed their plans, but I just needed to keep going just because I was going to go to New Zealand, and that was final. So I went to New Zealand. I worked as a whitewater rafting guide. Then I wanted to go to Southeast Asia, but this was during the recession, so the New Zealand dollar was pretty low. So I moved to Australia. I, through some sort of desperation, both on my part and their part, a family hired me to be a cattle rancher on their ranch in the Northern
Nice.
Territory outback. So I was a cattle rancher. And then I used that money to travel Southeast Asia, got in a boating accident in the Philippines, lost a lot of blood, recuperated in Guam with my great aunt and uncle, left there, went back to Southeast Asia to Myanmar. I was also known as Burma. I was in Myanmar, spent a month and a half in Bali learning to surf. I had to go back to Australia to get a job before I came back to America. because I was out of money. So I went back to Australia. I was a carny in Western Australia. So I was a carny traveling up and down the west coast of Australia. There I met one of my best friends who now is like a very successful um, uh, businessman in France. It's just so funny going from a carny to France, and me going from a carny to coach. We seemed so lost at the time. But I was like, okay, now I want to do something. I've experienced a lot. Now I want to do something. So I moved to New York to be an actor. But in order to afford New York, I had to get a job. So I applied and applied and applied for 2 weeks straight. Finally got a 2-week temp job at Inc. magazine. I'd never heard of it. Get out of the subway. I have long hair, bad fitting suit, ugly tie, no experience whatsoever. And I'm in front of the World Trade Center, number 7. I go up and I'm like, I'm never going to get this job. But find out the reason they called me in was because I was a cattle rancher, a manager on a cattle ranch. And that was just stuck out more than everybody else. So that temp job turned into a managing job of the Inc. 5000 list. So I managed the team that put that list together, even though I didn't know what Control-C, Control-V meant at the time. So these, like getting the job on the cattle ranch, getting the job rafting in New Zealand, getting a job at Inc. magazine and the World Trade Center. All these things taught me, like, education is not everything it's trumped up to be. It's really good to have education, but it's not the gatekeeper that everybody says it is. And just following the rules isn't the only way to go. You can do your own thing, but then you can adapt those transferable skills across the board. So Inc. inspired me to form my own company. So I formed a digital marketing company after 3.5 years at Inc. And then I really felt like I had no connection with my clients. Like, it was just very sales based, and I hated every call that I had with them because I was afraid of what they're going to say and afraid of being dropped. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to get something more meaningful. I started volunteering as a suicide prevention counselor because I was like, here I can make a real difference in a short amount of time. And I can probably acquire some skills here as well. So I did that for about 2 years, I think. And then decided, with my business acumen and combined with my skills in reframing to get people from taking their own lives, I bet that I could do this with coaching and help business people reframe their limiting beliefs. And that's how I became a coach. So that was a long story,
Yeah, but how many years did that take from that journey into New Zealand to?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it took longer than I would have liked if I had known how long it would take as a college student. Right. So I was 2 years abroad. So that was 24 to 26. I was 3.5 years at Inc. So that was 26 to 29. I had a digital marketing company for about 4 or 5 years and tried some other things in there as well. And then, coaching only started. I'd been coaching the whole time and just not known it. That was what my coach told me. She's like, I don't think you realize the skills that you're bringing into this without even knowing it. Just because you weren't paid to do this specifically doesn't mean that wasn't what you were doing. So professionally, I've been a coach for 1.5 years.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's an incredible run, an incredible story. Just so many different threads to pull at, but I guess I'll pull at the most recent one you brought up your own coach. How did that relationship materialize, and is it a relationship that you have to this day?
It is. In fact, I just emailed her today. So this is another thing to do with content, what we were talking about before the podcast. So I just started putting out, I didn't know how to start as a coach. I didn't even really know what a coach was. So what I did is I would get books on coaching, and then I would write a book summary. And one of the summaries was found by a guy named, his name's Mark Samuel, and it's called B State. And it's an organizational development coaching book. It's a great book, but I just summarized it essentially. He found and put it on LinkedIn. He found the summary, liked it. We got to chatting, and I was like, he was like, well, could you do one on this book? And I was like, well, what if I came down and interviewed you about the book that I just reviewed? And he's like, that'd be a great idea. So I went down to San Clemente,
Nice.
and basically filmed him. And his wife, Kameen Samuel, is a coach. She's also the first African-American female helicopter pilot in the Navy.
Oh, wow.
So a total badass. And that is how I got in touch with Mark. And then that is how I got my first coach, which is his wife, Kameen. And she's a fantastic coach and a fantastic person. So I have kind of one of my bigger first meetings coming up this week with a potential client. So she gave me some advice on that, how to prepare.
That's awesome. Yeah, and one of the things that I heard you mention in the context of your work as a suicide prevention counselor was reframing and how that's useful in coaching as well. Is that sort of the core strategy when you're working with your clients, or could you just tell us a little bit more about that as a tactic to bring more out of people?
Yeah. First of all, a coach is not a consultant. I mean, a coach can be a consultant, but a consultant generally comes in with the knowledge of having done it, and then can direct you to how to do it. That's usually the difference between a coach and a consultant. Difference between a coach and a therapist is the therapist delves into your past and healing, whereas a coach deals with your future and how to build to get there. So let's see here. I'm sorry, what was your question?
Reframing. Yeah, and how that
Reframing.
applies as a coach.
Yes. So in reframing, in coaching, my basic job is to listen, because the reason why I brought up the consultant part was that most of my clients know way more about their job than I do. So I can't come in with some sort of program that it's just going to universally work for everybody. So similar to suicide prevention, what I do is I sit there, I listen to them, and I pick out little incongruencies. I listen for those, and then I will either bring them up in a little bit, or I'll stop them. I'll be like, can you speak about that a little bit more? And then oftentimes, it's like when you come up with ideas while you're talking to somebody, the reason why you do that is oftentimes you know the answer, but you just need to spit it out. And as you're spitting it out, you can oftentimes find the folly in your logic and then find the more logical answer. So to be honest with you, a lot of my job as a coach is listening and then getting people to then reframe. It's also challenging them. It's like, why haven't you done this yet? What's been keeping you from doing this? So removing blocks, not only mental blocks, but blocks of planning blocks and stuff like that. Like, you need to take care of this first, and finding goals that will help knock down a bunch of other goals instead of trying to do everything at once. What can you do now that will make everything easier? And a lot of the mindset stuff, the resilient stuff, does come from Stoicism, and some practical elements of Buddhism and Taoism. For those, it's more along the lines of not trying, like advancing by not trying, and what to take seriously, or what I'd like to say, what to consider important, and then what to laugh off. Like, does this thing matter? And also to find out what's in your control and what's not. Because once you know what's in your control and what's not in your control, that can help you focus a lot more too.
Yeah, so in that, there's a bunch of things that we can talk about. What advice do you actually have for people who want to be bold? They want to take chances. They're on the brink of, like leaving their corporate situation, but they don't have the right resources, or they feel like since they don't have enough resources, they can't fully dive into the unknown. How do you get people to get off that fence?
Yeah. Well, I, this is a little bit macabre, but I think it's one of the most powerful things, if you can grasp it, is I remind them that they're going to die.
Yeah.
Um, there's, at the end of your life, you're going to regret the things that you didn't do. And the end of your life could come right away. And also just remember, those people, like, what's your fear? Are you fearful of disappointing somebody else or embarrassing yourself? Well, or being an embarrassment to other people, or afraid of other people looking down upon you. Like, they're going to die too. Like, you're not as important as you think you are. Your problems are not as important as you think they are. Like, the point is, you have this little sliver of time to do whatever you want. And when I say whatever you want, I don't mean like positive thinking, whatever you want, but you get to choose what you want to do and then go after it, even if it's
Right.
absolutely crazy. But you have this little time and you get to choose it, and then you'll be dead. I like to equate it to, a raindrop falling into an ocean, right? So it's a duality here. So your life is precious because you have this one drop. This one drop is precious simply because it's the only time it'll ever exist in this form. But at the same time, it's not precious because once you hit the ocean, it's going to disperse and just become part of the ocean. But then those elements of the ocean are going to rise up and form a new drop. So it's not precious because you're just a bunch of elements. So that helps me to remember when I'm thinking of something that's like, I think is overly important, remembering, oh, this is not as
Yeah.
important as I'm making, not as serious as I'm making. But at the same time, it's precious because this is the only time it'll ever exist. So, like, you know, use it, like, bang it around a little bit, like, do something with it. Don't just let it fall thinking that, your memory is going to be etched into everybody's mind forever. That only goes for a certain select people, that you could probably count on your, you know, two hands.
Yeah.
Uh, and then, the universe is going to end at some time. So, like, the point is, think a little more cosmic when you are making things too serious. And when it comes to making a leap like that, it's like, at the end of your life, are you going to be happy that you didn't make that leap? Um, that doesn't mean you can't keep a job and work on a side hustle, or anything like that. But also, to go along with death is, another element I like, is that the answer's not at the starting line. The answer's on the path. So, if you want to find your way through the forest, you got to start heading into the forest. You're not going to know it by standing at the entrance to the forest.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I think that, first of all, I think we come from the cosmos, and then when we leave, we go back to the cosmos, and we're going to be here for max 100 years, and
Yeah.
things have been around for billions of years. So in your like little lifespan, for me, what I've been trying to help people think through is add as many meaningful events as possible and really enjoy it, because it's going to be gone pretty soon, like we were
It's
just
going to
talking
be
about.
gone. And Alan
Mm.
Watts, actually, we talked about this before. Alan Watts, this blew my mind. I never even thought about it, which was crazy that I hadn't thought about it. But he's like, most people think that they're the result of the Big Bang. They don't realize that they are the Big Bang in continual expansion.
Oh
Mm.
yeah.
Like, and it's not ethereal. It's a fact. It's like, you are existing now. The universe is continuing to expand, and your existence is no different than this first star that existed. It came, it went, you're coming, you're here, you're going to go. Like, that is the Big Bang. You are a continuation of the Big Bang, not the final product.
100%. His quote that I really love is, through our eyes, the universe is perceiving itself. Through our ears, the universe is listening to its harmonies. We are the witnesses through which the universe becomes conscious of its glory and of its magnificence.
Oh, I'd never heard that. And I've listened to almost every one of his lectures. That's gorgeous. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I think on that point, as Arjun's saying, realizing that you haven't invented yourself and you're not this sort of discrete thing that's totally separate from the world you're interacting with. Like, you are of this world, you are, of the Big Bang, as you're saying, you're part of its continual expansion. It kind of takes a little bit of a load off because, maybe you can't give yourself as much credit for every success you've had in your life, but there's also just less sort of, I don't know, less negative accountability in a sense. Like, you're not feeling as much guilt or as much shame or as much, loneliness or distance from the universe, because you realize, like, we're nested in, even outside of the universe, you look at your own body, like you're nested in an organism that's like hundreds of millions of years old. Mammals have been on the planet for hundreds of millions of years. Humans have been on the planet for at least 100, 250,000 years. Like, I didn't create myself. I'm just, to your point, another raindrop that's coming down from the sky that has a lot of similarities with the other raindrops that I'm sharing this moment with as well. And I think, going back to your point too, Nate, about letting go of fear of judgment from other people, I think one of the helpful things for me too has just been realizing that, like, other people aren't thinking about you all the time. You have a relationship with someone and you see them through the context of your relationship. And when you're on the phone with a friend or when you're seeing them face to face, you have your attention. So there's this sort of weird assumption afterward that you still have their attention. But once that moment of contact is over, they're back into their own life. Like, they're not thinking about you until they come back into a social engagement with you. So you don't have to worry so much about, like, all the people in your social orbit being preoccupied with what you're doing or not doing, because they just aren't spending that much time thinking about you,
Yeah. In fact, they might be self-conscious thinking, what did you think of them?
Yeah, totally.
You just never know. Like, another thing as far as resilience goes is I like to tell people, like, you are literally we think, as far as we know, life began on this earth 4 billion years ago, which means you are the literal, like, you are the end right now. You are the current link in the chain that has existed for 4 billion years unbroken. You're the product of an unbroken chain of 4 billion years of life. You think you can't get over this? You think no life before you has ever faced the challenge harder than you leaving your job? Like, get a grip.
Yeah.
Take things into context. It's like, and to your point, to our discussion on that people aren't going to remember you, is like, most of us don't know the names of our great grandparents. Like, it's okay. You don't need to be all special, but you can be special to the people who are special to you. You can make special decisions. One of the reasons why I moved to New Zealand and Australia and Southeast Asia, because I wanted to have a story, like, to tell my grandkids when I got older. It's like, that was almost the only point. It's like, I just didn't want to be sitting around with no stories to tell them. I wanted to have an adventure, and they will know it, and who knows, maybe a couple generations after them. But it doesn't matter that not everybody's going to know it, but they knew it. Is the point.
Interesting. It's funny you mentioned Bali earlier and having that part of your story that you can share with your grandchildren. I'll tell you that I went to Bali for my honeymoon, and that is
nice.
And that was in November of 2019. Incredible experience before the virus and all that.
Happy 1-year anniversary.
Oh, thank you. That is the place where I realized that I was about to be a corporate refugee, because I was already at that point where I'm like, okay, I've been here for 9 years. I need to be doing something different. And when you go to a place like Bali, what you notice is that no one judges another person for what they're doing in terms of making a living. So no one has like any judgment if you're out there selling some tchotchkes versus driving tourists around. Like, everyone is a community there. And for me, that was one of the most eye-opening things in terms of like how happy these people are, and there's no judgment. So that combined with that Buddhist concept of like seeing joy in yourself, when you see joy in other people, like that's when you find joy in yourself. To me, all of that came together, and next thing you know, I was ready to become a corporate refugee. And by the way, the clients that you have, are most of them corporate refugees?
Yes. They own their own businesses sometimes. but they've probably left a particular sector in order to do that. I was the head of the Inc. 5000 for a long time. A lot of those people are, and an entrepreneur, a business owner is almost inherently a corporate refugee. They've left a particular thing that they were trained in, and now they wanted to start their own thing. So technically, they are kind of a corporate refugee. Also, some of my clients are artists, whether that's actors or working in physical arts. The common issue with a lot of these people is that they feel alone. They feel, they don't know who to talk to. They don't have somebody pushing them to be better. When you have a boss, you have, deadlines to meet and stuff like that. And when you're the owner of a company, you can't go to your wife for certain things. You want it to be like you want to leave your work at home and have a healthy, positive home life. You can't go to your partners and stuff like that. It's like you just really need somebody to speak with, an unbiased party who will also challenge you, because you don't want a bunch of yes men to give you advice either. So yeah, that's a common theme across my clients, is that they often feel alone.
Yeah, and I like how you were delineating between being a coach and being a consultant and being a therapist, and liked how there's an element to coaching of actually pushing people and holding them accountable, because, in therapy, it's really not there. The therapist is there to sort of be a sounding board and to maybe challenge your thinking in constructive ways, but for the most part, just give you an outlet to explore yourself. But it sounds like in your work, you really kind of have to hold people to account in terms of their own goals and the milestones they're setting. And I'm just wondering what that experience is like for you if you're working with someone who maybe isn't progressing as fast as they themselves want to, and what that looks like to motivate them.
Yeah. As far as accountability goes, my favorite story is my dad had this coach who coached him for a week, and he did it completely free. It was when my dad was like, he was very depressed. His business wasn't going the right way. He had 2 kids, a house, a wife. And this guy just took him under his wing. He was one of the top people at Thrivent, who then, by the way, also did business for BlackRock, was an advisor with BlackRock, an account. And he taught him for a week. And then when my dad was leaving their house, because he was at the guy in his wife's house, the wife says, we've loved having you here, but if you don't put any of this stuff into practice, you're not welcome back. And he's like, that may have been one of the most important things that this person said to me. My clients are too precious at the moment to give that kind of ultimatum, but in the future I will, because it is good to have people. It's easy for people to pay for something and then not do anything with it. I've done that a lot of times, more than I care to talk about. But as far as how I handled it now, there's some times where we'll get to, my clients will start crying because I'll push them kind of harder, or I'll confront them with questions that are painful for them to address. But yeah, we'll talk about it, and then that's one of the ways to keep them accountable, is just to keep it at top of mind what they're paying me for. Yeah.
I think a question that you might have been asking on the suicide prevention line and in this coaching realm might be around okay, who are you today relative to who you want to be in the future? And so when you think about that gap, what have you found truly matters versus what doesn't matter?
Yeah. First of all, what matters is what's in their control. That is the very, very, very first point. That doesn't mean that they can't get more to be under their control. That's a good strategy, to get more things under your control. But to accept what's in your control, to think of domino goals, the things that they can knock over that will help knock over everything else. That's a big one.
I like that. I like that.
And to get into the emotional side, what will it mean to you to be on the other side of this gap? How will your life be different? And then what if you never get there? What will you feel like? And if they don't really care, then that just shows me it's not a big enough goal. So that's a process of helping them determine the correct goals. Yeah.
And do you think everyone, obviously you've talked with people from all different backgrounds, experiencing all different struggles via the coaching and via the suicide prevention. Do you think everyone has an opportunity to find meaning in their life and to find that right goal? Does everyone have that goal that they just haven't found yet that could motivate them out of a dark spot if only they were to define it correctly?
Well, being a coach, you have to come to me with a goal. So I can't give you a goal to get out of. With therapy, I would imagine the goal would just be to feel more normal. But I would say that one goal that you were talking about can be clarified by focusing down to what you can control itself. Mm-hmm. Like oftentimes, like, we're so caught up in everything that we can't control, and that's what we'll get worried about, and watching things on social media or on the news and stuff doesn't help that process. It's like the world's going to hell and stuff like that. Yeah. It's like, that's not your job to think about the world. Your job is to think about your world. And yeah, I think that maybe more important than a goal sometimes is simply momentum. Like, what can you do to either stop the momentum of negative things, or just maybe not stop it, but just like put speed bumps up in the way? But also, what can you do within your power to create a little momentum? That's, coming full circle. That's when I started writing my blogs on Medium and then on LinkedIn. I was like, this is the one thing that I can control. I can write it. I can do it every day. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. But I would trust that at the end of it, at least I'll have something, and so maybe a goal isn't always the case. Maybe just getting some momentum in the right direction is a good way to start.
Yeah, because that leads to compounding. So like,
yeah.
going back to the baby discussion at the beginning, I mean, what they're doing is just compounding every day so that the reality changes, right?
Yeah.
And if you think about, like, you can compound with knowledge and wisdom. If you learn one new thing every day and you do that every day over a lifetime, you're going to be exponentially better than the average person or other people. So it's like, you don't have to be perfect, but you do need to do these small things on average, quote unquote, build that momentum like you were just talking about, and over long periods of time, that should get you to the other side of that gap.
Oh, that is so well said. I think it was Einstein who said something like the two most amazing things in the world are something like the string theory and compound interest, or the compound effect or something like that.
The eighth wonder of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really true. And also, like how we were talking about, you can't find the answer at the start of the forest. You have to walk in. So if somebody's really feeling dark and stuff like that, don't try to wait for an answer or a savior or like the right thing to come your way. Just start taking small steps. Those small steps will build up, even if they don't seem linear. As long as you're taking steps to like improve your state of mind, you will start gaining momentum. And sometimes it can be really great that you don't know where it's going at first. That's where, momentum can be counterintuitive to a goal sometimes too. Because when you're lost, you don't need to know the end goal all the time. You just take one step and put it in front of the other. Put one foot in front of the other.
For sure. Yeah, I think if it's interesting when you go back and do the inventory, take the inventory on your own life, think about periods of time that have gone well and think of periods of time that haven't gone well. Likely to your point, it was the momentum carrying you upwards that characterized the times that were going well, and it was the momentum carrying you downwards that characterized the times that things weren't going well. And I think someone that has an awesome life, awesome family, great career, great community, it was probably the momentum that took them there. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you think about the homeless person on the street corner that has no network, no safety net, they are as down on their luck as they could be. It's probably negative momentum that carried them all the way to that other end of the spectrum. So it is really important to just manage your momentum as well as you can, because it can spiral upwards or spiral downwards.
Yeah, and anybody can start building momentum. Like it's amazing how good it feels to just do something and then have done it the next day, and then the next day, the next day.
It's like working out. You see results, and that's your momentum.
Yeah, and to see those links in the chain just keep linking, it's a great feeling.
Absolutely. Well, I saw in your LinkedIn that you have a number of influences up there, but two of your influences or mentors were Bill Murray and David Bowie. Those really struck out to me as unusually cited people as mentors. So, can you tell us a little bit about how they landed there?
Yeah, sure. My favorite mentors are people who have attributes that I don't have yet, that I admire. So David Bowie, he's just like, he would just change his, he would change his complete appearance. His outlook on life, and there's plenty of quotes online that are wise from him, is, he just wanted to keep things interesting. And he did, and he just kept doing what he would do, and it was completely not with the mainstream. He didn't do things because he had a goal to be, based on how a rock star should be. He just did his own thing and became David Bowie. Right. So that was a big one for me. And he just rocked, and he just seemed like he had a really fantastic life. And he created a lot of joy for a lot of people. Bill Murray, I mean, his nonchalance, but at the same time caring, heart, just like, I just love it. And he's such a goofball. And he is just as great now as he was when he was younger. In fact, I would say that he's almost better, because, when you're younger, you can come off as kind of a stud, or, think that you are, really cool or whatever. His older self is just like, I don't carry a cell phone. I don't care. Like, I'm willing to be shot in a zombie movie, only be in it a little bit. Like, he's just so cool. And I love, for example, Taika Waititi, the director of Thor Ragnarok. Being in New Zealand, I followed his film career a lot. He's just very childlike at heart. I love that. I love Casey Neistat, the YouTuber, because, he's just like, I just keep busy. That's what I do. And I create, and people eventually liked what I did. And I can't remember, somebody said, oh, you're writing this article for this newspaper. How did you get to write this? Or he asked the reporter, and she's like, oh, I got my, MBA and MFA and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, what'd you do? And he's like, I filmed myself running into a cop car, on YouTube. I was like, it's really, really cool. It's not contrarian. It's completely independent thinking.
Yeah, truly original. Yeah. And I think a lot of what I heard there too connects back with your thoughts on pragmatic insights from Buddhism and Taoism, of just like letting go of the results of your actions, like not being so attached to a certain outcome coming from one event, just sort of like putting content out there, doing what you feel, being comfortable who you are, and like letting your birds fly away, and hopefully some of them will come back to you. And it seems like for the people that really do that without much attachment, the birds do come back with the fruits of their labor.
Yeah. And I mean, what is the function of a human? It's no real different than the function of an animal. It's just like, I try to remember that whenever I'm trying to be like superhuman or put myself down. I'm like, I'm just a human. I'm doing the best that I can. I'm doing what a human does, following my, instincts or my path, putting food in my mouth. It's like, why do I need more than that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you could be terribly smart. You could be an incredibly smart person and make some totally bonkers mistakes, like Charlie Munger would say. So it's like, we're all living this existence, and whatever is happening on our inner world is much more important than what's going on in the outer world. And so think a lot of problems come from the fact that we all think that we can change everything around us and that's going to change how we feel. The reality is that that never works. It's, you know, it's what's happening within you that you need to be concerned about, and really all you need to be working on.
Yeah, exactly. And to that point, all that you need to be working on is just how to make your life more enjoyable. And if that is helping other people and making a huge difference, that's great. But if it's, having a small garden and raising chickens, that's also great. There's nobody, like, similar to your Bali story. It's like there's no right or wrong way to do it. Just find what makes you happy, and yeah, start with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
How have you been getting some of your adventures fixed in during COVID? I know obviously you're building a business and, the coaching and all that, but outside of that, what are you doing in terms of adventures?
Yeah, it's definitely more of a challenge because I like adventuring with other people, but not everybody's
Yeah.
like down to have an adventure. Um, when I'm in California, I surf every Thursday with a couple buddies. So we go to Malibu First Point, which is right by Malibu Pier, and we go surfing. That's a great one. I've been running a lot more, and just like that's been an adventure, I guess, for me. This summer here in Colorado, I would hike a lot with my parents. That was fantastic. And then just working on kind of like inner adventures as well, as silly as that sounds. The writing, making sure to contact as many people as possible. One thing I've been doing on LinkedIn is just finding interesting people from all over the world with interesting titles and seeing if they want to jump on Zoom. So talk to people from South Africa, Syria, the UK, India. My sister lives in Jordan, so speaking to people in Saudi Arabia, and it's been fantastic.
It's interesting you say that because last week I actually recorded a video on the power of networking in 2020, and I just think that all the odds are stacked against us in terms of interacting with people. But if you actually took the effort this year, or even if you're thinking about it in 2021, all you need is Zoom, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And what you realize is that there's a lot of people out there that are actually in a mood to connect. Everyone thinks that everyone's more busy, but they're not. Everyone thinks that people are zoomed out, but they're really not. And if you think about that need for human connection, like right now, it's pretty strong. So if you can go out there and acknowledge someone's work, and connect in 2020 with a piece of technology, you're actually going to create a bond that can, I think, forever link you, and it's going to be a strong one. And so I'm 100% on board with you in terms of networking in this day and age, networking with people across the world, using LinkedIn as the platform to do it. And yeah, like, when you're finally getting in front of people, like making sure that your story is tight, you're asking good questions, like ask people where their thinking is taking them, or ask people what they learned this week, and just see where that goes, because that could open up new ideas, new thoughts, new jobs. It can help you understand where the new trends are. So I am 100% an advocate of networking right now.
And to your point, and the momentum we're talking about, you don't need to have an end result. You just go in just like, okay, I'm going to reach out to these people. I'm going to be interested. I am interested. That's really all you need. You do not know what could come of it. They could invite you out to where they are, and they might know somebody who could become a client. And there's just so many cool things we could talk about, but we're all isolated. To your point about people being saying they're zoomed out, I think people are just zoomed out of meaningless conversations. They want to have meaningful conversations.
For sure.
Yeah, in whatever medium that comes in.
Yeah, exactly. And you're right. It's like, have patience because things take time, but then also don't wait because things take time.
Yeah. Oh, that I like that. Have patience because things take time, but don't wait because things take time. Yeah. If you want to have connection, if you're lonely, just reach out to people. There are people on the other end of the line that like want to talk as well. And if you just want to create some sort of community, you don't even need to like set out with a goal. You just start talking to people. Who knows where a connection could be made? For example, so one of my big things was to create my LinkedIn account. I had a LinkedIn account, but I hadn't done anything with it. And this lady I hired helped me to make it what it looks like now, which I'm pretty happy about. But she knows a guy who helps people get their first TED Talk.
Oh, nice.
Well, that's something I would like to do, but I'm not ready for that yet. I just have different priorities in place. But I talked to another woman who comes from like the suicidal background, and this guy who teaches the TED Talks, he's had like 4 TED Talks, and he's used to be a writer for Jay Leno. He was also suicidal, so he had these ideations, and I was like, you know what? You're a speaker. You're kind of feeling like you're not gaining much momentum right now in your business. Why don't I connect you with this guy who does TED Talks? Would you be interested? She got her first TED Talk in 1 month from working with him.
That's
I
fantastic.
never would have had that experience, or she never would have become a TED speaker had I not taken the initiative to just reach out to random people and see where the conversation went. I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm just saying that my goal wasn't to go out and connect them. My goal is just to talk to people and then see what happens from it.
That's a great example.
Yeah, it's a lot of just having faith that something will come from the interactions at some point, not viewing it transactionally, but just viewing it as an opportunity to get to know someone and, letting the chips fall where they fall years down the line.
Yeah. I think that's a big thing with life too. Like there's a million things you could do. Just make one decision. You never know how that thing could turn out. Working as a cattle rancher, getting a job at Inc. because I was a cattle rancher, there's no way I would have set out with the goal that, hey, I'm going to become a cattle rancher to get a job at Inc. magazine.
Yeah.
It
would have been impossible to design that.
Yeah. You can't repeat it. So I think it's very true to life. Just do your best, do what you enjoy, and see where the chips fall, and help influence them if you can.
Absolutely. So we've talked about this several times. I have to ask you. So suicide, it's the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. There's over 100 suicides a day. I want to know your thoughts on mental health, the mental health of society right now, and where you see some of the breakthroughs might be in terms of mental health.
Wow, that's good. I've never had any. I actually had a really bad mushroom trip.
Okay.
A month ago, and I don't really do psychedelics or anything like that, but I was like, well, I'm with a friend and we'll go do this. It was a very dark experience for me. It was really hard to deal with, and I had never experienced anything that I couldn't get out of with my own logic. And it was very, very tough. So this is making me more empathic to people with mental illnesses. It's like, whoa, I do know the feeling, in my own experience, at least, of like what it's like to not be able to talk yourself out of these certain situations. With suicide, a lot of times people just want to talk. And that's one of the best things with mental illness to do, is just have open conversations.
Okay.
The other thing with suicide, and I think this goes for anybody, whether they have a mental illness or not, is to not judge the person. Also, what that means is don't show sympathy, because sympathy is a form of judgment. Sympathy is like, imagine your friend is at the bottom of a well, right? And they're just down there, they're in a dark spot. Sympathy is you at the top of the well, reaching your hand down, saying, come on up here, it's light, everything's great. Why don't you just climb up? Empathy is going down and sitting with them in the bottom of the well and just being there with them. That's how you can help people a lot with mental illness, as far as like an interpersonal thing. And then as far as, clinical, or at least reaching out for help, there's tons of free resources to reach out to. Also, don't be ashamed. Just go and do what you have to do. Again, use what's in your power. You can't control how people are going to think of you once they find out you have a mental illness or are going through some mental disturbance.
Sure.
And the biggest thing that I think is so cool is that a lot of celebrities and athletes are coming out. Sorry, my niece is crying.
No,
are coming out and, kind of speaking about their mental illness or being proud of speaking out about their mental illness. Pete Davidson's a big one.
Oh, yeah.
I know in the Black community in the United States and in the UK, they have this kind of cultural thing that they want to feel powerful, and it can stop them from expressing their feelings, like when they're feeling really vulnerable.
Same with Indian people.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, in our culture, it's not necessarily something you talk about. A lot of people are not going to go to therapy because it's a sign of weakness. And
Chinese people too.
It's just a culture where you don't even say "I love you" to anyone, because instead of saying it and asserting it, it's more like, "Didn't you see that I showed it to you?"
Yeah. I grew up in the Midwest, and my family is very loving and affectionate, but you work in a lot of blue collar jobs around a lot of blue collar people, and it's not the norm to go to the doctor. It's not the norm to say how you feel. It's not the norm to express if something's wrong, or not wrong, but just not right, not the way you want it to be. Yeah. So the fact that it's becoming less of a stigma, I think, is really important. And
Yeah, and you start to get that, speaking of compounding effects, once everyone starts coming forward with their baggage, you start realizing just how many people are going through the same thing, and people become less lonely by virtue of realizing there's this whole big world of people that are going through something similar. But if everyone's keeping it inside, there's a feeling of being the only one. That's just a total fallacy, because the reality is the person right next to you might be going through the same thing. It's just neither of you are talking about it. So
yeah, which is just the importance of being kind to people. I mean, really, that's all you have to do, is just smile, acknowledge, be kind when you can, accept yourself when you're not kind, or when you're like being an a-hole or whatever. Just, yeah, it's not as, again, like going back to our animal, what do animals do? They roam, they graze, they hunt, they just act like animals. Humans, same thing. Just be kind, be supportive, say hi, make some money to get some food on your plate. It's not that complex.
Yeah. It's like, recognize the humanness of all this, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And accept yourself for, like, who are you to think that you should be so tough, or that you should be so perfect? Like, it's okay. You are a human, so it's okay to have these emotions and these thoughts and things like that. If you didn't have them, then you would be an alien or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, you're a human. You're going to have human thoughts. Anything within the human capacity is a thought that you could have, or an emotion that you could have. Accept it, and then don't judge yourself for it.
Well, it's a really powerful idea to end on. Maybe you could tell our audience where to find you, Nate. I know you got LinkedIn, you got a Medium. Maybe you give us the handles for those so people can follow your work.
Yeah, absolutely. We can certainly include it in the show notes. But my email address is just nate@natejohnson.coach. And my website is just natejohnson.coach. I don't actually have a Twitter. I just have my LinkedIn. I'm so bad with technology. I get so overwhelmed. Then my LinkedIn is linkable from my website, but I think it's very simple. I think it's LinkedIn/LN, I think is for the personal pages, /Nate-Johnson. So it's like literally just Nate-Johnson. Or you can just search Nate Johnson Coach on LinkedIn and you'll find me.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for an awesome conversation, Nate.
Thank you, guys. This is really, really a great conversation. And again, I'm not zoomed out when I'm having a conversation like this.
No, I appreciate your presence. Thank you for your time.
Likewise. Thank you.